surface. You can't let these little things be sticking up, because what will happen is that this dry piece will literally wick up, suck up all the water in this entire surface, and your little plant will be high and dry even though it's under the soil. So you have to make sure to bury all of this.
Cuando se siembra, vamos a decir si sembramos cilantro o lechuga en este cartoncito, cuando les recomendamos que cuando siembren el cartón, que todo que esté abajo de la tierra. ¿Por qué? Porque si esto está exponido al sol, lo que pasa es que el sol seca este cartón y se seca toda esta parte y va a matar a su planta. Entonces, siempre sembrar todo con todo el cartón hasta abajo.
Now, if we continue, like in spring, if we continue to have more of these wonderful rains, chances are this would stay wet, and this would rot out, and so you just have these little mountains drifting in the soil, so you could just remove those and throw them in the compost pile. But just so that you know, you need to keep track of it. You need to really look at it, see if it's happening. And if the plants are kind of limp, then that might be happening, because even though you know you've watered or it's rained, it may be that this has sucked away the moisture. So just keep track of it.
Ahorita que está lloviendo tanto y ya que está sembrado abajo el cartón, con la lluvia la tierra se va a empezar a ir a los lados. Entonces les recomendamos que mantengan, vean si el cartón está todavía abajo. Si gustan, pónganle poquita tierra arriba, o si esto se pudre, corten nada más la montaña. Si ya ve que la planta como que se está muriendo, es porque se secó el cartón con el sol.
Now this carry-out container, somebody gave it to me. They'd gotten a batch of drinks at some takeout place. And because it's got these large holes, this you will need to put the paper towel in there the same way. But then you have a much larger space for your seeds. So this might be a better one to use for like your tomato seeds or even your squash. Something that then you could, if this was for squash seeds, you could put this in as it is, and then you just guide into really well-amended soil, because the roots from each of these plants will go out into the garden. So this would be a good one for some of those plants that can be somewhat closer to one another.
Este cartoncito que recibimos cuando vamos a comprar comida y nos dan bebidas, se ve que los hoyos están muy grandes, entonces les recomendamos que usen un papel así. Y aquí se van a poder sembrar un tomate, una selga, algo que necesita más lugar para sus raíces. Entonces, lo mismo, mantengan que la tierra esté arriba del cartón para que no se seque.
Now another fun one, especially for kids, is if you've taken care, when you've taken your eggs out of the container, to break them in half, and they're still in your two halves, you can put each half back in here. Fill it with soil, start your seed in the egg half. You just have to remember to poke a hole in the bottom of it, otherwise it's going to be a little lake there each time you water it.
Algo que podrían participar los niños, cuando ustedes rompen los huevos y hay una mitad del huevo, también se puede poner el huevo aquí, ponerle poquita tierra, ponerle la semilla para que los niños vean cómo también crece el vegetal del huevo, de la cáscara de huevo.
Now, for those of you that don't feel quite so worried about transplanting a plant, actually handling it, you can use a container that's plastic that is not biodegradable. It won't break down the way the paper product will. And this also gives you more space for the roots to develop. But it does have all the drainage holes here, and it does have holes in the top for ventilation. So you can fill this with your potting mix, plant your plants in here, and just anchor it a little bit. See, it's still open at this end. This is wonderful for seeds that really need it to be warmer in order to germinate. That will be mostly of your things that you're growing for the summer. Now the danger of starting in this kind of a container is that the plants, because they are so moist and it's so much warmer in here, because there's a top on it, that chances are you will get what's called damping off. That means the little sprout comes up and then it just falls over. And you see that right at that place by the surface of the soil where it came up, it's literally constricted and it looks like it's all brown and dead. And it is, which is why the top falls over. The way to prevent that is when you see about half of the little seedlings already coming up green, that's when you open the top. And you make sure that it gets some good air circulation. Like now, we could put it out during the middle part of the day when it's quite warm, so that it will begin to heat it up, and those plants will be much more comfortable, but they will have the breeze coming by them and blowing away that little pathogen that is creating that damping off.
Este plástico también se puede usar, tiene los hoyitos abajo, este se recomienda más para semillas que necesita más caliente, como el tomate, el chile, cosas que necesitamos para el verano. Entonces lo que recomendamos es poner la tierra, sembrar la semilla, cerrar la mitad del plástico. Si notan que cuando empieza a brotar lo verde, es cuando se necesita abrir lo de arriba. Se abre la tapa. ¿Por qué? Porque si lo dejamos cerrado se va a podrir el tallo y también se podría podrir las raíces. Entonces, cuando ustedes vean que abren y como que no se ven muy bien las plantas, es porque hay algo mal. A lo mejor es porque se pudrió, porque no tenía suficiente aire. Entonces les recomendamos que cuando vea que chispea lo verde, nomás abra la tapa.
And you talked about the air circulation. Okay. All right, more containers from milk. Now, if you feel them, you feel that it's a little shiny, or doesn't feel shiny, it looks a little shiny and it feels really smooth. That's because even though the inside is biodegradable, it'll break down, there's a coating, a plastic coating on the outside, and that will not break down. So you can't bury these under the soil, but you can still use them to start your seeds. You can cut a section out like this, fill it with potting mix, and plant your seeds in here. You get that nice depth for your seeds. And then you can punch holes in here, and again, put it on that cookie sheet or some platter that's going to be able to have the drainage under there, but not run all over the counter. And then again, you can, do you have a flat?
Sure.
Or maybe most people won't. You can make several of them together and just put them in a sunny windowsill or put them outside. This one is the same thing, just cutting it a little differently. And this one, again, punching the holes in the bottom. You also can make a flap on the bottom. Put this on your cookie sheet, fill it with potting mix, put 1 or 2 or 3 seeds in here of that one plant, like a tomato or squash or whatever. When this one grows, it'll leak out a little bit when you water it, but then when this one grows and you're ready to transplant it, that's when you bend it down and it'll slip right out so you can plant it. Okay. Yeah.
En estos cartones también podemos empezar semilla, pero nada más procure que toque primero el cartón. Si se siente como que tiene como un plástico, no vaya a sembrar el cartón, nada más se va a poder usar para la semilla. También le recomendamos que pongan unos poquitos hoyos hacia abajo y como este tiene buena profundidad y buena distancia, también se recomienda usar este.
And I explained Melanie just cutting it through here so that when it's ready, it just pops out the bottom.
Cool. También esto también se puede, pueden cortarlo en 3 de aquí, porque cuando quieran trasplantar se puede sacar o se puede salir la planta hacia abajo para que no molesten a las raíces.
So if you consider that this is your cookie sheet, okay, this is what you can put on this so that as you water these, the cookie sheet will hold the water. Same thing with this. So that you can put all sorts of these things on one thing, so you can carry it indoors at night and carry it outdoors in the daytime, so it gets that nice sun and warmth.
Vamos a decir que este es el sartén. Miren cuántas cosas podemos poner en un sartencito. Acuérdense que tiene que tener como un labio para que sostenga la agua adentro del sartén, pero miren cuántos podemos sembrar en los productos reciclados.
And the last way that you can start seeds is with these little baskets that you get cherry tomatoes or strawberries or mushrooms or who knows what in. These holes are too large again, all the potting mix would fall out. So you need your paper towel. Fill it with the potting mix, put several seeds in here, and then this will melt away.